Hello and welcome to the Acting Coach Network podcast. I'm your host, Savanna Madden, acting coach, award-winning theatre school owner and business coach for performing arts professionals, tutors and small business owners who want to grow their business with confidence, resilience and to step into their CEO mindset. Today, I'm joined by Tom Newton, who has over 2 decades of experience in the film and TV industry. Tom trained as an actor before moving into casting, then later went on to work as an acting agent. Today, he's an entrepreneur who has spent more than a decade reshaping the landscape of drama training in the UK. Back in 2012, Tom co-founded Middleweek Newton Talent Management, an agency representing adult actors across film, television and theatre. From there, he went on to launch MN Academy, which delivers high-quality screen acting classes for adults, and later MN Co-Curricular, which takes filmmaking, TV presenting and stop animation clubs directly into schools for children from year 1 to year 8. In 2019, Cromer Studios in King's Cross became the creative base for all of this, a home where new ideas could be tested and developed. And then, after years of planning under Tom's instruction, Middleweek Newton achieved something groundbreaking. In late 2023, MN Awards became the first Ofqual recognised awarding body to specialise exclusively in film and television. The journey wasn't easy. The Ofqual application alone was a huge undertaking, and once approved, Tom, Sophie and his team had to create an entire ecosystem of guidance, video content and written resources before a single exam could even be taken. But the results are extraordinary. A set of graded qualifications in screen acting and related subjects open to students from the age of 8 upwards, with level 3 qualifications carrying UCAS points. At the heart of MN Awards is a belief that screen acting isn't just an add-on to theatre, it's a distinct discipline with its own techniques. For a generation of young people growing up surrounded by film, TV and digital media, screen training resonates deeply. And for teachers, it offers a way to re-engage and excite students. Tom calls this work part of a culture shift, recognising film and TV as central to drama education, giving teachers the tools to deliver it confidently, and making screen acting an equal partner to theatre in the performing arts classroom. Tom Newton, welcome to the Acting Coach Network podcast.
Thank you very much. That was a very generous introduction.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, I have taken your training to deliver the MN Awards at my theatre school, which is still in the process of happening. So I know how good the training is for other theatre school owners. Really good additional training for teachers. So,
that's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
Totally deserved. So let's start at the beginning. What drew you personally into the acting world and then into the world of casting, agency, education? Where did it all begin for you?
Okay, so I mean, obviously, first of all, when I started, I didn't really know the direction that I was going to go in ultimately, as far as kind of casting and kind of agency was concerned, and education and stuff like that. I think it was probably originally just a love for cinema, really. You know, as a kid, I was completely kind of captivated by that sort of, I don't know, you kind of like, whenever I used to go into a cinema, I always used to feel like there was a bit of a kind of magical feeling to it. You know, I was sort of fascinated about movies and how they can kind of immortalize the people both in front of and behind the camera. And they sort of live, you know, long after all of the kind of credits are rolling and stuff like that. And also, I don't know how old you are, but I'm now in my 40s, and I'm sure you're far younger than I am. But in the 80s...
Only a little bit younger, yeah.
Okay. In the 80s, I think I grew up in a really lucky time for film. Like the 80s, Spielberg, E.T., you know, Indiana Jones, Empire of the Sun, stuff like that. I don't know, there was a magic to it. And I don't know if I ever really believed... I don't know if I ever really believed that I was going to have a career in it at that point. I think it was just, you know, something that I was really genuinely interested in. I went and joined my local drama group and started acting and understanding what that was. But yeah, that was kind of my first step into it. I remember going and seeing stuff like Back to the Future.
Oh, what a film.
I know. Well, I still love watching it now.
Yeah, it's so nostalgic, isn't it? That kind of era that you're talking about. And yeah, it's exciting for young people to be able to watch those types of films as well, because I think that they've aged quite well. So
Yeah.
not all, but lots of them have.
I'm constantly saying to young people whenever I'm in their classroom, I'm like, okay, what's your favorite film? And then they're like, this, that, this. And half of them, obviously, I've not seen. And then I'm like, has anybody seen, Back to the Future? Anybody seen E.T.? And to be fair, there are quite a few kids that are like, oh, I love Back to the Future. And I'm like, okay, cool. So,
Yeah, I think there are
it,
some good parents out there who are educating their children in the film world.
I think that helps. I think it helps that their parents are probably our age and are forcing them to watch some of these things.
That's it. What was the spark then that led to launching your agency, Middleweek Newton Talent Management?
I approached my now business partner. We were both working as agents at the time in the same place. I approached my now business partner, Lucy, Middleweek, and I asked her whether or not she wanted to start her own thing up. And I genuinely didn't think she'd say yes. So I was quite surprised when she did, to be honest. She kind of came back the following week and said yes. And then it all sort of went from there, really. Prior to that, I'd come from an acting background, gone to drama school and stuff like that. I'd worked in casting for a long time. And when you're kind of working in casting, you're sort of working at either end of a long piece of string. One end is the agents, one end is the casting directors, and then all of the actors are in the middle. And you sort of work, I think it's quite easy to shift between those two areas in terms of casting and agency stuff. When I met Lucy, she actually needed help with her list of clients. So this was a long time ago, but I was actually writing at the time, or trying to write. And I was really enjoying sort of writing more TV scripts. And one of the scripts that I'd written had been picked up by a producer. She's actually a bit of a legend, really. Producer, director, writer, actor, Kay Mellor. So Kay Mellor, she ran her own production company, Rolden Productions, and she made like some absolute classics like Band of Gold, Fat Friends, and then more recently The Syndicate for BBC. But unfortunately, she passed away in 2022. And I was writing for her, and I needed a bit of part-time work, and I'd been kind of working in casting alongside the agency stuff, and then met Lucy, helped her out with her books, and then we became friends. And I ended up, unfortunately, the writing side of things didn't happen for many different reasons, and I ended up working full-time with Luce. And then eventually, I just sort of said to her, do you want to do your own thing? And then we got very lucky. We sort of set up on our own. We started in Lucy's brother's spare bedroom.
Love that.
Yep. And we were working out of his spare bedroom. And then very kindly, a production company called Ofqual Productions, who were the guys that made The Inbetweeners. We knew a few of those guys, and they very kindly gave us some space in their offices because they had these huge offices in East London, and they had lots of spare room, lots of spare tables. And then we sort of, we moved into that space. We worked from there for a while. And then really it's kind of gone from there. We got our own office maybe a year or two later. And then we went from there to where we are now, Cromer Studios in King's Cross.
And what kind of scale of the amount of clients have you got on your books?
So there's, up until very recently, there was 3 agents, and there's a couple of assistants. Each of the agents probably around about 30 clients. But one of our agents actually just the other week has left, and she's gone into the world of casting, which is what she's wanted to do for a long time. She's left with our blessings. She hasn't left for another agency, thankfully.
Yeah. It's always a worry.
And she's gone into casting, so she's just gone down that route. So we're down to 2 agents.
So Cromer Studios is such a creative hub now. So what role has that space played in allowing you to test ideas and grow all your businesses, as it were?
Yeah. So I suppose it's been super useful. It's been a bit of a playground for us to have your own space like that, somewhere to actually have the room to test the various bits and pieces that we've got going on. It's kind of where our ideas go from sort of being what if to, well, let's kind of film it and see what happens. There's lots of kind of new syllabus tasks, filming techniques, exam techniques, teacher resources, all the CPD training that happens in person, happens at the studios. It kind of gets tried out in that space before we then push it out to teachers and schools. I'd love to say that technically we can kind of start something in the morning, film it in the afternoon, and have it edited by the end of the day. But unfortunately, it never quite happens that way.
No, of course not.
Yeah, as I'm sure you can appreciate with editing these podcasts. I know you don't necessarily edit a huge amount of them, but yeah, I mean, it's the videos alone that we've got online have taken such a long time in terms of what we've created for the teachers and the schools that are getting involved in the awards. And also, like, everybody's there. So it's not just MN Awards, it's our agency. So the kind of wider Middleweek Newton network just means there's kind of a constant collaboration there of people, and we're never sort of short on talented people that we can bounce ideas off of.
It's not quite that linear, is it? You know, things
No.
pop up and you go, oh no, that's not quite right. We need to re-edit that, or maybe we need to reshoot that, because we want it all to be just so, don't we? We want it to be exactly how we vision it.
And as you've sort of said in some of your podcasts, you know, you kind of, yeah, you're getting involved in so many things. It's very difficult to see the wood from the trees. As far as the studios are concerned, it's a bit of a think tank, more sort of with, I suppose, tripods and less suits.
Sounds like my kind of place. So I touched on it in the introduction, and I know that the Ofqual application process was one of the biggest challenges. So can you take us inside that journey? Like, what did it involve, and how did you keep going when it was very challenging? And I know that you had numerous people on board with it. It wasn't just yourself doing the application.
Oh my God, Savanna. I don't actually know, to be honest with you. It was like running a marathon with roller skates on. The application started in 2018. So basically, it started pre-COVID, the first application. And then what kind of happened was COVID hit and everything that was going on just stopped. So I basically turned around to Sophie and was like, well, look, you know, whilst we're not doing too much for the next couple of months, why don't we get on with creating that application? So to be fair, it was Sophie that started the application. She started it in 2018. And then she finished it in October 2023. So 5 years of pretty much pure endurance. Sophie Holt is one of the ladies that works in the office. It was kind of led by her. It's sort of the charge was entirely her, and she deserves full credit when it comes to the Ofqual application. I just was a kind of shoulder to cry on and tried to encourage her as much as I possibly could. She handled all the kind of regulationary stuff, all the spreadsheets, and, you know, somehow managed to survive that.
What a powerhouse.
I know, yeah. She did an amazing job. I mean, there was definitely it was such hard work because, like you say, it's the ability to keep going.
Absolutely, that is a resilience test in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wasn't just sitting there and, you know, drinking coffee and calling her, and being like, "You'll be fine, just keep going." Whilst she was kind of pulling her hair out, you know, with the application, I was kind of doing much the same with everything else. So
yeah.
I had to create the curriculums, and then I was having to test that curriculum, making sure that the tasks work. What's incredibly hard, or what was incredibly hard for me, was I taught these things for over a decade, but I'd never written them down. And it's such a process that I wasn't really ready for. And alongside doing all of that, I was also, I'd gone out and gotten quotes for a website to be built because I wanted like a CRM management system so that teachers could come. Yeah. They could come to the site, they could register their students, they could book an exam, and that site kind of really manages those exams for them. And we got a quote for it, and it was enormous. And I thought, well, you know, COVID has stopped everything. Why don't I look into trying to learn how to build a site myself on top of doing all of the curriculums and the guidance for these bits and pieces. And yeah, I remember spending about 3 months, and very similar situation to Sophie, pulling my hair out upstairs in my little office upstairs, wanting to throw my computer across the room because I couldn't get the website to do what I wanted it to do. But yeah, managed to eventually figure it all out, created the site. Sophie was kind of decoding the sort of Ofqual framework side of things.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that is incredible.
It was a case of kind of having to.
Yeah. I think though, I totally get what you're saying. I think though it does take a certain type of person though to commit to learning how to do something like that, and committing to it, learning, and then seeing it through to the end. I think that is an incredible achievement to have seen everything through, because it's one thing starting and then having to navigate a pandemic where your industry is literally shut down and not really taken very seriously. So the fact that it's all up and running and the qualification was approved as well. Spoiler alert, everybody. Yes, it was approved.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
You can go to
it's
the
just,
website now. Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I think I can't imagine everybody being able to see that through to the end from your perspective and from Sophie's as well.
Yeah, so I remember, we made the first application and you sort of assume that you're relatively close in terms of it being passed by Ofqual. And I think the advantage was we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. And it was genuinely an advantage because the first application came back and we expected it to be failed because it takes an average of 5 or 6 attempts
Really interesting.
to pass that process. We were like, well, we're gonna fail it first time, but we'll probably be close, and then it'll be a case of just nailing the next few points, getting the next version in, and we just assumed that would be relatively quick. But the documents by the end of it were absolutely enormous, and yeah, we had no idea how many times. I think it was 5, maybe 6 times in the end that we had to apply. And each time, obviously, we were getting a bit closer. But yeah, we genuinely had no real concept of when we were going to pass, which was the hard part.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know that not just anybody can pass.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's good to know that. I mean, and I get it. It's a rigorous application for those. I think a part of it is built to potentially put you off, to really test your ability to keep going.
Totally, because they want to sort the wheat from the chaff, I imagine, as well. Make sure that they're really approving things that are going to be really beneficial to people and will be solid, I suppose.
Yep, that's what it felt like.
Yeah. God, it sounds like it. So you kind of touched on this earlier, but before the whole application was approved and before a single exam was sat or taken, you had to create mountains of content, resources and guidance to go on this website and for all of that to be launched. What did that period teach you about resilience and running a business? Because obviously we talked about the qualification and how things were during COVID, but I imagine you got to the point when you had the application approved that it felt much more like a business setting and that it was a service that you were providing.
Yeah, I mean, we got the application approved, and then I'd already completed the first subject, which was screen acting, but I'd never really looked at it from the perspective of the teachers that were going to go and then teach that subject, and that's actually when the writing of the guidance started. And again, I assumed that would just take me a few weeks, and that ended up taking me almost a year and a half to write the guidance around it. And I think as far as kind of the question is concerned, the resilience side of things, I think we've sort of touched on this already. I think the grind is the point, whether it's kind of resources or guidance or the Ofqual application itself, the ability to keep going and tackling what felt like the same problem over and over again. I mean, it feels like self-punishment at times, but we did it anyway in the hope that really teachers recognize the hard work that's gone into it. And as far as kind of what I learned was concerned, as far as what I learned from a business perspective, and again, you've already kind of touched on this, is that timelines lie. So double them, basically. With every time I feel like I'm generous with the estimates, but now I've kind of learned to be not only generous with the estimates, but once I'm like, okay, it's going to take X amount of time, I'm always like, cool, just double it. And I had that conversation with another business owner recently, and he's a friend of mine, and he's doing a website, and he was like, it's going to take about this long. And I was like, it won't take that long. Just double it. And he was like, no, it won't take double. And here we are, I think, probably more than double, and he still hasn't finished it. But that's kind of what happens, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good piece of advice. So we talk loads on this podcast about performing arts business owners wearing different hats or wearing all the hats in some instances. And I know that you've mentioned that one of the hardest parts was learning to let go of some of those hats and having to give certain jobs to other people and things like that. So what were the hats you found hardest to take off?
You're not going to lie, Savanna, it's a work in progress.
Same.
Yeah, it's a real work in progress. I'm still wearing lots of hats. I'm kind of trying to transition from being sort of, as far as the awards are concerned, being sort of across multiple things, whilst also encouraging kind of the management team we have in place to take off some of those hats and place them on somebody else's head. But we're not fully there yet. And the hands-on reality is that I'm still deeply involved in the day-to-day, and that's kind of the current reality. But I am slowly starting to put things in place. So in answer to your question, all of the hats that I started with, I've probably still got on my head. I think I'm trying to encourage the people around me, like Sophie, like Elliot, like the other guys in the office, to be like, okay, look, who can we hand part of this job over to? Because I need you over here to do this with me, or I need you to take this off my hands. So it's more about them at the moment, and that's what we're doing. We've gotten some extra help in, which, as you know, is great, but also takes time in itself. You know,
it sure
takes time
does.
to bed people in, takes time to know that they can do the job correctly to the high standards that you've set or the people around you have set, and those people aren't easy to find.
But what I like, though, is that there is lots of self-awareness there. Not everybody is quite aware of how many hats they're wearing and how tricky sometimes they can be to take off. So I think that's a really good thing to realise. Has all of these different hats and things like that, has that changed the way that the MN Awards are run today, now that you've got a few more people in? Has it made it easier, or are you still in that stage of training people up, as it were?
Yeah, I think so. The issue that I have is I'm very protective of the curriculums and the guidance that surround them. I suppose it's the creative side of the job. And for me personally, I definitely I'm going to have to learn to start to trust other people with that. But yeah, I mean, we've just got some extra hands more in other areas of the business. So we have kind of an after school department that's separate from our award stuff that one of the guys in the office runs. And we've just got somebody in to kind of start to take over that area. And then we also run what we refer to as our London adult classes. And again, there's somebody that's just come in that's just starting to take over that kind of area. And it's kind of an internal shift. That's what we're having to do. We're having to shift around people internally. So the people that were doing that are now kind of moving into, I suppose, more senior positions, if you want. But we're still super small.
Yeah.
And we're still a super small business, really, in the great scheme of things.
So I want to move away a little bit now from, the hardcore businessy sort of chat. And I want to talk about what I would call the fun stuff of the actual screen acting and the classes and things like that. And something that you said really resonated with me was that some teachers might still see screen acting as a bit of an add-on, as a bit of an extra, because most theatre schools, clue is in the name, are teaching stage acting particularly. So it's a bit of an add-on to theatre. So how do you get teachers to get on board with the fact that stage acting is its own entity? How do you explain the key differences, and why does it deserve its own qualification, the screen acting?
I think in order to answer that question, it comes down to the audiences as well. There are two audiences, and it's the same with theatre, right? You've got kind of a lot of learners who screen exams or theatre exams, whatever it might be, or just, screen or theatre in general. It's about having fun. It's about building confidence. As far as that's concerned, as far as that audience is concerned, like they already love TV. They already love film, YouTube, whatever it is. It's their native language. So they enjoy the exams. They enjoy seeing themselves on screen. They enjoy that acting side of things. And confidence I always see confidence as the byproduct of any performance-based exam or skill. That's what kind of comes from it. But for more serious performers, this is the other audience I think that I'm kind of referring to.
Mm-hmm.
For me, screen's essential. That audience they're the guys that maybe take performing a little more seriously. And I've worked in casting and I've worked as an agent and I've been to drama school, and it never totally makes complete sense to me that we're in 2025 and the lack of screen training that's going on, where the vast majority of opportunities, as in audition opportunities, they lie on screen.
Absolutely. What's the first thing you do before you have an audition? You do a self-tape.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot of opportunities to audition, perform on screen. And that's not to take anything away from theatre.
No, not at all.
Love theatre. That's kind of where I started and continue to love theatre. But yeah, the vast majority of opportunities sit on screen. And if you're preparing actors, if you're only teaching theatre, then you're probably preparing them for maybe 10% of the real world opportunities that if they go on to become an actor, they're probably going to receive. And I think as far as kind of the skill itself is concerned, hopefully you saw this in the CPD training, but screen is its own language.
100%.
It's not just theatre with a camera. The frame,
it's a completely different skill set.
completely different skill set. The frame becomes the stage, and every eye line, every shift, depending on the frame that you're working on, will change the audience's interpretation of what it is that you're doing. And that's just the technical side of things. The marks, the shots, the continuity. It sounds intimidating, but once you dive in, I think it's genuinely very interesting and really enjoyable to teach.
Yeah, really fun.
Yeah, from a purely performance perspective as well.
And also from an audience's perspective, and I'm talking about audiences in the people who watch, we consume theatre productions and screen performances, whether that's a film, whether it's a TikTok video, a YouTube video, TV, we consume those things differently. And that's why we need such a different set of skills for each one as well, right? So it's
absolutely, yeah.
It seems really clear to me, but that's because I'm fully on board with it. So how do you see this culture shift that you've talked about where, film and TV are being recognised alongside theatre in schools and youth organisations?
I think it's happening. I think it's definitely starting to become more prevalent. The fact that the fact that you and I are having this conversation now, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago it wouldn't have happened. Maybe it was too soon. Don't know how, but maybe it was. As far as the exams are concerned, I think it's probably always going to take someone, and hopefully this is not blowing our own trumpet here, but someone like MN who's kind of lived that journey, because when we first started classes, which was over 10 years ago, I remember starting very, very early classes and going online to try and find out what games I could play and how I could teach it. And there just wasn't anything. And there still isn't a huge amount. There's loads of theatre games and stuff like that. But we've really had to develop our own exercises over the last decade. And I think that's probably a big part of it, especially for teachers, having a place that they can go to with lots of resources, where they can go, oh, actually, I can play that game in my drama class, and I know the kids are going to love it, and we can put them on screen at that point and they can watch themselves and they'll all have fun. I think that's a huge part of it, and it's going to probably take us to create more and more of that kind of work so that when people hit the site and they've registered and signed up to it, they can go in and find all those resources. And by the way, they are all completely free.
Yes, they are. I just wanted to let you know, actually, that last Christmas I put on a 3-day acting for screen workshop, slightly Christmas themed, obviously, because it was in
Amazing.
December. And I did the poker face game with the children, and they loved it. Yeah,
really?
They absolutely loved it. Yeah. And it was 3 days, and 2 of my team led the 3 days. And our classic principal I just popped in, for a little bit to have the fun bits. And I was like, I'm just going to do a couple of games with them. So the poker face one went down an absolute storm. They really, really loved it.
How old were they, if you don't mind me asking?
They were aged between 8 and 12.
Wow, that's good going. Poker face. Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. I mean, that's kind of poker face really is, you've done really well there, teaching them at that young, because technically, it's level 3 of our grades, but the earlier you can teach it, the better.
But they just loved being on screen and having all the set up. I had the stand with the backdrop with the curtain and the lights.
Nice.
It was just my phone in the tripod, but they just, they loved the whole atmosphere of it all. They really bought into it, which was great.
Yeah.
I'm obviously a teacher that does not feel nervous about the technical side of things because I use technology for lots and lots of things, but I can completely understand how some teachers might feel nervous about the technical side of teaching acting for screen. So can you explain how your CPD training helps them to feel more confident without having to add lots of extra bits and extra workload and things like that?
Yeah, so we've worked very hard when we deliver the CPD training, really just to take the fear out of all of it. It's not heavy. Teachers during the CPD training, you get to kind of do the exercises. So it's not you just kind of sitting through lots of theory. We're kind of getting you up on your feet and We're getting you acting, we're giving you scripts, you're learning lines. You are basically the students. And then, as I said, just in regards to the last question, there's lots of kind of plug and play resources that we make you aware of via the website. So there's lots of ready to teach kind of materials, various exercises, examples, lots of videoed examples that we'll show you during the CPD training itself. And then the idea really is that you can kind of there and then they're getting the ability to deliver some screen sessions almost kind of straight away. We hope that you can kind of walk away from the CPD training and be like, okay, cool. I'm going to go and run this exercise and see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I did my training with you in November last year, and I put on a workshop 6 weeks later. So obviously I've got screen acting experience, and
yes,
I was a presenter for years as well. So that's why I already had all the kit, because
right.
I can do it remotely at home. But it would just gave me loads of additional things that I could be like, oh, we could do that. Oh, and we could do that. It was a lot of fun. But it definitely did give loads of resources, loads of things to do that you could just go and put into practice. So yes, I can definitely vouch for that.
Yeah, and as far as kind of the tech is concerned, as you said, really the mobile phones and any smart mobile device that you've got, the cameras are so good these days. That's all you need. But some people are starting to go a bit more deeper now. I got some teachers requesting, can you give me a really good camera that I can use? But a mobile phone, a tripod, and really something, if you can hook that up to something so that when you're teaching, whatever it is that you're teaching, that you're able to almost film the student live, that's really all you need.
That's a screen and a cable, essentially, isn't it?
A screen or a cable, and like on sort of TikTok and stuff like that now, you can get amazing tiny projectors that are, about 40 quid, and they'll
isn't it?
beam a massive screen on a wall somewhere for you.
Yeah.
And the kids love it. So
exactly.
Yeah.
It makes it so atmospheric, doesn't it? And makes it feel, I just think it gives it a real good edge to make it feel more fun for the students.
Feels quite cool as well.
It does. And I think it makes them feel quite grown up as well, like that they're being taken seriously. And I think that's what a lot of young people crave. So yeah, I think that's a really cool thing to do.
They love the high drama, especially the teenagers.
Yeah, of course. It's like real life.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So a lot of people that be listening will know the traditional exam boards like the back of their hand, like Lambda and Trinity and all of those big ones, because they've dominated the syllabus world, shall we say, for decades. But what makes MN Awards different, aside from the fact that it's screen acting, and why is the dedicated screen pathway so important?
Okay, so as far as kind of, obviously, as you said, screen is its own subject. So it's entirely different in terms of the skills involved. From an exams perspective, it's, again, I'm not blowing my own trumpet by any means here, but it's built entirely differently. And you might be able to answer this as well, because you've probably looked at the curriculum. But our grades, when I wrote the grades, our grades aren't adapted from theatre exams. They were written from scratch. And when I wrote them, I kind of wrote them trying to mirror real life skills that I believed were relevant to screen. So I've never actually taught Lambda or Trinity, and it's not to say that they're not amazing, because they are, but I've never actually personally taught them, and I've never actually looked at their curriculums either. And I think that's probably why our curriculum feels so distinctly different to theirs. It's not sort of bound by any of those frameworks, and I fully appreciate that screen may not necessarily be for all teachers. Some are going to prefer to stick to the traditional theatre path, but for sort of the curious and the creative, if people enjoy kind of learning something new approaches, new exercises, hopefully you'll love the variety and the freedom that the grades that we've created offer.
I also think that the price points that you set your exam fees at are a lot more accessible and inclusive for a wider audience and for more people to be able to participate. And I think that's really important.
That's a very good point, Savanna. We are.
And I also think that it's actually a benefit that you're not familiar with the other exam boards, because as much as you might have thought, I want to do my own thing, you just don't know what subconsciously might have been rattling around in your brain, and might have had an impact or might have influenced how you created your syllabus. So I think that's actually a benefit that you aren't familiar with the other exam boards.
I didn't do that on purpose. It just, when I started,
just how it happened.
When I started writing the curriculums. I hadn't really. I think it's because I taught it for so long previously. I sort of have had my own way of approaching the classes that I taught, over the past decade. And I had a real clear idea of, okay, cool, this is what I want these to include. And I didn't need to go and look elsewhere for inspiration. I already had my inspiration.
And some of these exam boards are now starting, or there's chatter about adding screen options to their curriculum. So why should schools and teachers choose MN awards instead of bolting screen acting on as like an existing thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's not a bolt on for us. It's our backbone. It's everything that we do. Not to repeat myself, it's not, but it's built from 10 years of kind of living and breathing screens. So it's not an addition. It's everything core that we do. So every kind of mistake, every breakthrough, everything that we've done over the last 10 years really has been folded into them. We didn't hire someone to write these. We've had to test and build, rebuild, refine them ourselves. So yeah, it's a labor of love. A lot of care has gone into it. Hopefully that's felt when you see them and teach them. You don't have to say yes, but hopefully
no,
it does.
I think that comes across, definitely.
Okay, cool.
And we've touched on not only are these sessions, classes, exams preparing young people for potential auditions and work if they want to go down that route in the future. We've also talked about how they build confidence. It's obviously not just about performing, it's about communication. And in the digital world as it is currently and how it is moving at a very fast rate, how do you see these qualifications preparing young people for life, even if they don't go into the performing arts necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming an ever digital world, isn't it? I mean, what the future holds, who knows, with the sort of likes of TikTok and stuff like that. But as you said, it kind of screen acting, that kind of creative arts, it develops communication, confidence, all that sort of stuff, self-awareness in general, I think. And I'm hoping that the grade, sort of go beyond screen acting.
So like life skills, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah. I suppose what I'm trying to say is it's like we're living in sort of the beginning of an AI driven world, aren't we?
Exactly.
Like, what are the connotations of that? And how prevalent is screen going to become? I think it's only going to go in one direction. So I know it's kind of awful to say, but at the same time, I don't know if there's going to be really much we can do about that. We are going to spend more time on screens. Our kids are going to spend more time on screens, understanding, and this goes beyond just screen acting, it's theatre as well, understanding storytelling, understanding editing, understanding how to put those stories down, I think are only going to become more and more relevant as we progress down that road. It's already happening to an extent, right? Marketing is turning into storytelling. That's what it is.
You literally have a hook, a main body, and then you have your call to action.
Yeah.
It's how reels work, isn't it?
It's in everything that we're doing. And I suppose the ability to transmit that message as well in person is also just as important.
And if we go a little bit deeper as well, what are your thoughts on the more children are exposed to screen acting training, the healthier their relationships could be with being on screen, seeing themselves on screen, and just having that positive relationship with screens? Because obviously for some young people, screens are, well, for most young people, screens are like their life, aren't they? But they're not always having positive experiences with them. Yeah,
it's an interesting observation. I think it exposes them to more than just being in front of the camera. There's so many skills that are behind the camera as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're really interesting skills, editing being one that we're probably both quite used to.
Yes.
It's great. It's a form of storytelling unto itself. And I think exposing kids to that at a young age, one, hopefully it gets them off watching screens so much, even though what they're creating is ultimately going to cause somebody else to probably watch the screen. But yeah, it's getting them to use kind of film in a different way and be more creative with it. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing by any means. I'd love to have understood how to do that and develop that when I was a kid.
Oh my gosh, me too. I would have absolutely loved it. Yeah, I've always had quite a positive relationship with having my photo taken, being on screen. And I know that I am probably quite a big exception to the rule in that regard. But yeah, I would have absolutely loved it as a child. So having more screen would have been really, really good fun. But as we say,
Yeah,
screen
absolutely.
acting is the absolute heart of MN Awards right now. But is there anything else on the horizon? Are there any new subjects or directions you're excited to explore in the future?
Yes. I don't know how much I can say here. So we've just finished developing filmmaking. So exactly the same thing, grades 1 to 8, levels 1 to 3. We will be hopefully dropping those by the end of this year. And then really the idea is to try to expand and develop kind of hopefully all of the performance grades that are associated with the screen in general, and the same with kind of behind the camera. That's kind of ultimately our goal. And yeah, but it's a very long process, as I'm sure you're probably aware. We're in the, having to create those curriculums, and the time spent doing that. It'll take us a while, but we'll get there.
It's very exciting. So now, Tom, I want to ask you the one question that I ask every guest that comes onto the podcast. So that is, if you could give one piece of advice to a fellow creative or business owner who's feeling stuck or unsure right now, what would it be?
And I kind of think it has to be off the back of my experience. So my advice would be just to keep building, keep learning. And I think that's something that, whilst I'm probably not great at many other things, I'm probably very good at learning new things.
Mhm.
And I'm good at learning them even when they're uncomfortable. I always kind of feel like, every draft and every delay that kind of comes your way, every late night rewrite of something that you're doing over and over again is proof that you're still moving. And moving forwards is the only thing that really ever turns an idea into something real, ultimately, in the long run.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. You have shared so many great insights, so many wonderful thoughts and opinions, and some great advice as well today, Tom. So thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you, connect with you, hear more about the MN Awards? Tell us.
Okay, so obviously go to our website, which is www.mnawards.co.uk. On Facebook and Instagram, we are at MN Awards. We also kind of have our London Academy, which is more for adults. It's not necessarily got anything to do with our exams. That has also its own website, www.mnacademy.co.uk. And we are on at MN Academy. And if anybody needs a studio in central London and would like to come and join us at any point for our CPD training, we're at Cromer Studios. The CPD training is found on the awards site. But yeah, Cromer Studios, we also, I didn't say this earlier on, but we rent out Cromer Studios during periods when we're not using it. And then there's our agency, which is Middleweek Newton Talent Management. If you just Google those things, you'll find them all on Google.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Acting Coach Network podcast. If you've loved what you heard, make sure you're following. And if you've got a moment, I'd love for you to leave a quick review or share this episode with someone else in the industry who might just need it. You can find me on Instagram at the Acting Coach Network. And if you're looking for support to grow your coaching business or creative career with confidence, resilience, and without burning out, check out the latest tips, tricks, and behind the scenes over on Instagram. You can also find my latest free resource in the show notes. I'll be back soon with more real conversations, expert insights, and tools to help you build a business you love. Until next time, keep going, stay kind to yourself, and I'll see you soon. We're taking a little break for a couple of weeks, but don't worry, we'll be back in your ears on Monday, the 3rd of November with a brand new season. I've got some incredible guests lined up, loads of inspiring conversations, and plenty of tips to help you in your coaching and business journey. I cannot wait to share it all with you, so I'll see you soon.